Hi Richard, and welcome to our Hands-on Food herb garden. Hands-on Food is an educational program for local schools, and this herb garden was established in the last 4 months from January, and two purposes. One purpose is to provide herbs for the commercial kitchen in the square, Wholegrain Organics, where Hands-on Food meets every week to cook, and we teach the kids cooking skills. The other purpose is education with gardening, so to get the kids outdoors, to see where the food's grown, to have that connection to where the food comes from, and also the connection into the community. So we're taking the classroom environment and we're bringing it into the community, both through the herb garden and the kitchen. Mm-hmm. So the space we have here, I guess we've got about 250 square metres we've planted out in herbs, and customers from the Wholegrain Organics, they had the space available and they invited us to make use of it. So we started by getting some mulch. You see the mulched area behind us. We use a lot of herbs in the kitchen, for example thyme with our mushrooms, or tarragon and mushrooms, lovage in our ketchup, tomato sauce, sage with pumpkins, really nice. And so when we were invited to come here, the first thing we did is get as much cardboard as we could, kill the grass off and cover it with mulch. It's a real community event. So Mega Mulch across the road, they came with their truck. They provided us with some mulch, and we even had a school group down here as well who started spreading mulch around, and now you can see it's starting to get established, even though this time of year things are a bit dormant, but the roots system is getting established under the ground. We're wanting to make it pretty easy care, and so that was the first thing. We had a lot of potted herbs already, so we simply put them into this free draining soil, and now we're extending out to a few other things. So we've got some onions planted now, we've got garlic planted now, spring onions, and specialty items we can use with the herbs.
I'm Chris. I'm kind of the main gardener, I suppose you might say. I'm part of the team of Wholegrain Organics and Hands-on Food. We decided, after the herbs were really beginning to get settled, that we had some garlic and we'd like to plant it and experiment with it. So this time we tried a slightly different approach. Instead of laying the cardboard in the mulch, we had an area that we needed to dig up and work on the weeds and then mulch. And because last winter the garlic crop wasn't so good, we wanted the garlic to be planted in raised beds. And this is what we've done here this time. We've created beds, and as we weed it and mulch it, you can see the garlic's coming up through the mulch and doing quite well. So hopefully we'll have some garlic ready to harvest in January. So one experience we've had amongst the herbs, particularly some of them are Mediterranean type herbs, and they like a dry environment. And of course here in New Zealand we have a lot of rain, and this time we had more than usual because the cyclone went past. And the sage plants that like dry roots, they got too wet and we started losing them. So in order to rescue them and keep them going, especially as the weather came colder, we've put tunnel houses over them just to keep the rain off and give them an opportunity to dry out. The soil we have here is really, really good river loam. I guess it's been built up over the years from silt from the river, and it holds water well. It drains well, but not quickly enough for the sage. So come next spring, there's a couple of beds at the back that are raised already. They're from an old existing garden, and the sage could be planted in there and mulched just the same, but just giving them that little extra drainage that the other herbs are tolerating quite well here. This is the mulch that we use. It's wood chips, leaves, twigs, all sorts. It's been partially composted down, so there's lots of the fungi going through it. When you look in nature, the way God's designed everything, the trees, they drop their leaves, they fertilise the plant again, the soil that's left bare, it's not very productive. It's exposed, the weeds grow in an attempt, they just use the bare spaces. But if you really want to grow something easily, putting the mulch over, every time it rains, the plants are getting compost tea. I don't have to go and mix it up and go and give them a drink. The rain's doing it for us. So it's naturally getting fertilised. Just the way nature intended. And the worms, they're all up through the pile itself. It's constantly breaking down the whole time. It's going to be just pure compost by the time we get it spread. We'll need more mulch, and it's really something to watch. We had the plants, when we moved them down here, they came from a cool mountain climate, and this is a temperate climate. They liked it straight away. They were still in their bags, but the minute we put them into the soil with the mulch around, the difference in the plants was just, within a few days you'd see the colour in the leaves change, and then within a few weeks you'd see the new growth coming. It was really quite remarkable. I'm quite a firm lover of mulch. I'm afraid it saves so much work.
So how things are developing. Next project here will be a tunnel house. It's an area where when the kids from Hands On Food, who are our manpower, how do the things get maintained through the effort of the kids. They get good exercise out here, some time to exercise their muscles, and we'll have a shelter built up here where we can get out of the rain, so we can use this space all year round. We've got a little fire pit here at the moment, but I'd love to see a bread oven and a pizza oven in here, so we can have events down here, especially as the kids invite their families and it really gets into the community. The hothouse will be used for growing basil, because basil's probably the hardest herb to grow. It's the most sensitive, and maybe some dill gherkins. The intention was maybe in a year's time the groups of kids coming through the kitchen will start to come down here, but we've already had groups of kids down here, so that means we need to get some infrastructure down here sooner than we expected. So that's the reason for the shelter already. And as the schools and the community show interest in the garden, we'll support it with the development, because that's who it's for. We just wanted to add for the kids, the schools coming down here, when we see the joy on their faces and the enthusiasm from the teachers, it's really inspiring. And the kids, they are concerned about many things, climate change being one of them. What will the future hold? And they look around, they see people own things. What am I going to own? But here nobody owns it. So it means it's something, very different concept, something where they can simply work together. So it's something we do together, not something we do for myself, but for others. And that is, I think, I don't know what the right word is, maybe invigorating, but it's something that they see, well, I can join, be a part of. And I think for the community and for the schools, it's the same, because you're not building up any personal belongings or any personal advantage. And so to see something where there's no advantage thinking in it, what can I get from it, but what can we give, that will be the philosophy that sees it continue. It needs structure, it needs guidance, but with that philosophy, I'm sure we'll see it develop.